It is going to be a big weekend in Queensland where local government elections and two by-elections will go ahead despite concerns over the spread of the coronavirus. Our state political reporter Alison Horne joins me now from Brisbane. Good morning to you, Alison. Just take us through first what the situation with coronavirus cases is there this morning.
Well, Kirsten, Queensland has so far recorded 493 cases of coronavirus. That's actually still yesterday's figure. We're yet to hear how many new people have been positively identified overnight. So we expect that by today we'll have well over 500 cases recorded here in Queensland. But certainly over the last week we've seen an escalation in the number of cases being identified here, somewhere between 40 and 100 new cases each day, and we have recorded the second Queenslander to die from this virus this week, a 68-year-old man from Toowoomba who had been a passenger on a cruise ship that docked in Sydney last week. He unfortunately passed away earlier this week in Toowoomba, but as I said, we are still waiting on those updated figures for today.
Now, the outbreak in Queensland clearly isn't interfering with the operation of this weekend's local government elections and those two by-elections that are scheduled for tomorrow. Who is worried about the fact that they're going ahead?
I think you've got to suspect that there are actually a lot of people in the community who are concerned about going out to vote tomorrow, considering the messaging that has been given to Queenslanders to stay at home, to not go outside for anything unnecessary. And on the other hand, they're being told that having millions of Queenslanders go out tomorrow to vote is okay. The Chief Health Officer, Dr. Jeanette Young, here in Queensland has said that there's more risk to people going to the supermarkets and bottle shops than there is of people going to polling booths tomorrow. And certainly we have seen there has been an increased activity on those pre-polling booths. We've seen about 1 million people try and get those votes done before the actual day tomorrow. There's about 570,000 people who have registered for postal votes, but even given that, it still leaves about 1.7 million people who still have to go out physically tomorrow to those polling places. And from what we have seen this week, people aren't practicing social distancing. There are still people who are gathering in mass areas. So there certainly is a lot of concern. And we've heard from doctors as well who have some real fears that if there is coronavirus transmission in the lines for getting into a polling place, contact tracing in particular will be very difficult.
And so what are officials doing to try to mitigate the spread of the virus this weekend?
Well, as I just mentioned to you, the Chief Health Officer has said that the advice is that it is still quite safe for people to go to these voting areas, but there have been a couple of mitigation factors put in place to try and ease any concerns and try and stem the flow of any more spread of coronavirus. So, for example, people are being asked to take their own pen or pencil. They've been told if they get to a polling booth and there is a long queue to not go into the queue, but to come back later. It's not going to be a socialising activity like we've seen in other years. For example, the democracy sausage is off. The cake stalls and the cake bakes won't be going ahead. We also know that how to vote cards have been banned, and parties have been asked to dramatically restrict the number of volunteers that they have actually physically at those polling booths. And inside those polling areas, when you go to cast your vote, there will be restrictions on how many people can be in that space at one time following those national guidelines. But certainly we have seen a number of people who have said that they are so concerned that they are considering risking a fine instead of going out to physically vote.
That's Alison Horne in Brisbane.